Assalamualaikum and hi. For this musicianship final assessment, our group have choose question number 2. So, let's answer the question.
So guys, I'm Zulaika. I will answer this question for you guys. Okay, the first answer is the basso continuo, which is figure bass. In general, the basso continuo part was played on the harpsichord or organ in the harmonies, and for keeping the band together, the instrument were used. Second, contra as a dramatic element. In a drama of Baroque composition, contra is an essential ingredient in many Baroque compositions. The distinct instruments and timbres are played an important role. The third one, many different forms are used. A concerto is a large-scale composition for an orchestra plus a soloist or a group of soloists. There were two types of Baroque concerto, which are the concerto grosso and the solo concerto. Concerto of both types generally have three movements, which is fast, slow, fast. Fourth, harmony in the Baroque era. Harmony came to be viewed as chords which lay the foundation for the melody as we know them today. Major and minor were known as key rather than modes, and the harmonic pattern of tonality started to develop. And last one, tonal color. Different nuances or concrete musical figures have been used to convey specific emotions such as joy or sorrow, or even abstract ideas such as being lost.
Next, let's see what is the answer for the second question.
Alright, 5 characteristics of the classical music. Number 1, more variety and contrast within a piece than Baroque, for example, dynamics, instruments, pitch, tempo, key, mood and timbre. Number 2, lighter, the texture is cleaner than Baroque, therefore it is less complicated and mainly homophonic and melody above chordal accompaniment, but counterpoint by no means forgotten. Number 3, the sonata form is the most important design. It was used to build up the first movement of most large-scale works, single pieces such as overture and also other movements.
Okay, for the number 4, the piano takes over, often with Alberti bass accompaniment. Alberti bass is a kind of broken chord or arpeggio accompaniment, where the notes of the chord are presented in order lowest, highest, middle, highest. Okay, for the last one, which is for the number 5, importance was given to instrumental music. For example, sonata, trio, string quartet, symphony, and concerto. Symphony means a sonata for orchestra. It grows from the Italian overture, but the symphony has 3 movements instead of 3 sections. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, let me and Shafika answer for the third question. What do you think about the differences, Shafika?
First is texture. In Trio Sonata, it can be found as homophonic movements, where the instrument works together, playing the same rhythms. So, what is difference in Concerto Grosso?
In Concerto Grosso, the textures are mainly polyphonic, where melodies interweave with each other, although they are often homophonic or melody and accompaniment parts to contrast with each other.
For the melody in Trio Sonata, almost all of the melody based on the stepwise movements and interval.
Different with Concerto Grosso, which is melodies, use a number of scales, and arpeggios most sometimes use sequence and imitation.
For the harmony or tonality, in trio sonata, somebody fill up the harmony by improvising an instrumental accompaniment.
For the concerto grosso, it's building up the tension in the harmonies used, culminating and coming in the cadence or stopping point. Let me explain for the structure. I know a bit for trio sonata. In trio sonata, the number of movements varied, but later type usually consisted for 4 movements, which is slow, fast, fast. Do you know for the concerto grosso, Shafika?
Yes, concerto grosso has 3 movements, which is fast, slow, and fast.
Referring to the instrument that involved in trio sonata usually involve for performance. The instruments are used in trio sonata such as viola, violin, cello, and bassoon.
For concerto grosso, usually involves the larger group of musicians, which contain 2 to 4 soloists with 8 to 20 musicians. The instruments are used in concerto grosso are strings instruments and also harpsichord as bass continuo or continue bass line. So, I pass the last question presentation to Dashini and Zulfika.
Differences between the key periods of Western classical music is the change in creative thinking. Baroque music, as we can clearly hear in the textural complexity and the dominance of polyphonic writing. The classical period moved dramatically away from this dense, intricate compositional style towards a clearer melodic line and accompaniment or homophony. Baroque and classical opera both include aria. In Baroque opera, aria were a way to showcase a solo performance's talent, emphasized on solo. While for classical operas, aria were more of a team effort, resulting from a combination of performers and the orchestra.
For the third point is Baroque and classical opera both contain recitative. The content of this recitative is where the Baroque and classical opera differ. Baroque opera were very focused on Greek mythology such as the Asian god and heroes, which is tended to create a more tragic, dramatic and non-realistic feel. Classical opera, opera buffer and comic opera in particular had a more comical approach. Next is both Baroque and classical opera were performed with the use and orchestra. Orchestra were primarily used for 2 purposes in opera: orchestral overture and interlude symphony. The last point is Baroque used harpsichords and other string instruments. Meanwhile, classical is more to piano. That's all for our answer.
Okay, all the questions were answered. That's all from us about almost the Baroque topic. Thank you.